my first ever podcast. It is called Trust the Dyck. My last name's Dyck, so you can see why that's funny. So I'm going to start off with where I started 21 years ago. I was 23 years old. I'm sitting 100 plus pounds overweight. From where I end up going, I was probably 131 pounds above where I needed to be. I was out of shape. I was sad. I was depressed. I was miserable. And, even though I was married, I felt alone. There's only so many things you can accomplish when you are that heavy, and there's so many struggles that go on every single day in comparison to, my wife at the time. She was in shape, she was active, and there was a lot of things I just couldn't do. I missed out on, and it was embarrassing, to be 23 years old and to feel this way. We lived in this loft in Edmonton, Alberta, and we had 2 floors. So our bedroom was upstairs, and that's where our bathroom was. And this is a very embarrassing thing to talk about, but hopefully I reach as many people that are going through or that have gone through the same thing as I did. Whenever I would go to the washroom, I actually had to sit sideways because I was too big to sit like a normal human being in that spot. And, every time that happened, I kept telling myself, is this my rock bottom? Is this my lowest low? Am I going to finally make a change or make a difference or, go in another direction? And no, it wasn't. I just kept on and kept on. I worked at this place called Ruth Chris. It was like a semi-fine dining restaurant. And I absolutely loved it because I loved serving. I loved fine wine, and I love people. But the place had 2 floors. And just like where I was living, this was my nemesis. This was my Everest. Whenever I get to work, I was always worried. I was worried if they put me on the bottom floor, I had to go and climb a flight of stairs to get my drinks, to come all the way back downstairs to serve my tables again. Now, for the average person, that may not be a big deal, but because of how heavy I was, it was drastic. I would go upstairs, grab my drinks, come down, and for minutes and minutes, I had to collect myself. I had to catch my breath. I was sweating. Honestly, felt like my heart was going to just push through my chest. And in those moments, even though a lot of my coworkers were my friends, I felt embarrassed. I felt very, very, very alone. I was upset with how far I had let myself go. I was getting ready for work one day, and we have this outfit, this uniform that we have to wear. And don't get me wrong, I looked pretty good in it, even for how big I was. But we had these slip-on shoes, and seeing where my weight was, because most men carry their weight in through their midsection, so I was a very large guy. But I had this technique to go ahead and put on my slip-on shoes. What I would do is I'd take a deep breath and I'd blow all my air out, and I would be able to put my shoes on. Well, this has clearly worked for a very long time until one day when I went to go ahead and do this. And once again, I've only ever told this story once in public, so this is the second time ever. So hopefully a lot of you can relate to this, and hopefully I touch a ton of people. But that one day I went to go ahead and do my technique to throw on my shoe, and I couldn't. I would say that would be my breaking point. When, as a grown man, you can't put on your own shoes, I think that's when you finally say, either something's got to be done, or I don't know where I'm going to be 10 years down the road. During all this, my back was killing me. My knees were on fire all the time. And to me, this was just a normal way of life. I was addicted to Reese's Pieces Buttercups. I was addicted to Twinkies and any form of fast food. My deal wasn't the gym. My deal was when I got stressed out, I went right to food. Why this happened, I have no idea. But all I knew is in that moment, that was my rock bottom. That was my aha moment. Either I'm going to change or I don't know where I'm going to go. What I did is I turned my hat backwards and I said, I'm going to go ahead and do everything I can to make myself never feel like I did in this moment again. Now, what I'm going to tell you is obviously not probably the best way to go about it, but it's all I knew at the time. I didn't know anything about food. I didn't know anything about, working out, cardio, nutrition on any level. But I knew that chicken was healthy, and I knew that tomatoes were good for you. I went ahead, and for the next months and months, that's all I consumed. I went and got a gym membership. Now, I want to say for a lot of people that were in my position for how heavy I was, that would have probably been the hardest thing I have ever done on the face of the planet. Walking into a facility where you have all these people that look absolutely amazing and, in my head are judging me. Probably not what was going on, but that's what I was thinking. So therefore, that's what was going on in my head. I proceeded, got a gym membership, And because I didn't know anything about weights, I saw this circuit area. It showed a picture of how to perform an exercise. And I just went from machine to machine to machine. I performed 2 hours of cardio a day, 7 days a week. And I just kept going through the motions. I will say after a little while, I started to notice the weight coming down. But even though I was losing weight, I still saw the same person in the mirror. Later on, I'll tell you, that's probably still affected me even to this day, because there's certain things that I don't necessarily do that the average person may. But I think it's from, where I was that it still bothers me and affects me. During all this process, I met a guy. His name was Ross. And he was probably the biggest help or person to shoot me in the right direction I have ever met in my entire life. I don't think I would be here to this day if I hadn't have met him and learned from him all the cool tricks of the trade, just these little things to go ahead. And he had noticed me in the gym when I was there and just came up to me one day and said, you know what, I can really tell that you're going in the right direction. And you know what, you're looking amazing. Obviously you feel a lot better. And, we started to get this rapport going. So I just started asking him questions. And him and I would meet probably 2 or 3 times a week for coffee. And I asked him one day, I was like, how old are you? He said, I'm 56. The guy looked like he was 35. And right there, I was hooked. I'm like, what are you doing that I'm not? And other people that I know that are older than you clearly aren't taking care of themselves the way they're supposed to be. And I just picked his brain for months and months. And the cool thing I took away from that is so many people, even though, I'm a personal trainer nowadays and I love what I do, but so many people go ahead and overcomplicate things almost to a fault, where they think it's too tough or it's too demanding or it's too time consuming or all these things come into play when actuality it's not. And so he taught me the art of simplicity and how to go ahead and allow somebody to get results and be sustainable at the same time, to make sure that this is just a lifelong thing. It's not a fad. It's not a diet. It's not any of these. When I was losing the weight towards the end, because I ended up losing 131 pounds in 2.5 months. And not only did I feel better, I obviously looked better, but I knew that I couldn't carry on like this for any longer. You can't sit there and eat chicken and tomatoes and do 2 hours of cardio and hope this is going to last forever. The first 3 letters in diet are die. And obviously I wasn't going to go ahead and die, but I knew that if I didn't change how I was performing the cardio, the workouts, consuming the food that wasn't a lot, this wasn't going to be sustainable. And I wasn't going to be able to make this last to be a lifelong habit or ritual. So, when I met Ross, it was so nice for him to go ahead and just teach me certain things about foods, how they react in the body, a lot of blood type based stuff, and how to truly kind of consume food for yourself. Every single person is different on the face of the planet. And to be able to go ahead and know what to put in each one of those based on what they do for a living, it was almost priceless. I drilled him with questions and I thought, you know what? Fuck it. I can do this on my own. Now I have something to compare to. So I will say, when I was overweight, out of shape, and I just felt like utter shit, now I had something to compare to. And the cool thing about that is, when I was over here, I just thought that was the way it was supposed to be. I thought that was life. I thought, cool, when I wake up in the morning, that was the best part of my day, because the second my feet hit the ground, my knees were hurting, my lower back was insane. And I just thought this was normal. But now it's my life's mission, once I felt like this, to teach as many possible people as I can to go ahead and feel exactly like I do now. So being the 23-year-old kid I am, I was like, you know what? I learned a lot. I'm going to go and do this. So I went to our local Rocky Mountain here and went in and said, hey guys, I'm going to be a trainer. They said, well, you better have something that stands above and beyond every other person here, because there are a ton of trainers in this town. I said, yeah, I got this. So I picked up a mat, set of dumbbells, a couple bands, and I set out to go ahead and put this into my basement. Now, I was still serving at the time. And while I was serving, I met this lady. Her name was Michelle. And she was my first ever client. I brought her in, and over the course of the next 2.5 months, she lost 50 pounds. I thought, holy shit, it's working. During that time, I picked up a couple other guys, and I was getting excited because, wow, everything that I've learned, everything that I've gone through, the things I learned from Ross and the things that I incorporated into it are finally clicking. It's working. After about 3 months or so, Michelle went back to where she was from, because she was only there for a holiday. And the other couple guys that I had kind of fell to the wayside because they weren't getting the results. It wasn't sustainable. It wasn't consistent. And they were getting frustrated. Hence, they didn't train with me anymore. So I had a very hard time with that, because I thought, you know what? This is what I want to do. it's working. And then all of a sudden to go down this route and all of a sudden everybody that was doing well to now not be there was very disheartening. And so I still needed money. So I went and worked on an oil rig for about 6 months. Now, don't get me wrong, money was great. But the entire time I was there, all I could think about is where I needed to be and where I had to go. I knew that I wanted to be a trainer. I knew that I wanted to teach people how to eat healthy, when to eat, why we're eating, how this is working for you, and to understand, to be able to make an educated choice or decision on certain things that allow them to go in the right direction. So I left and I went back home. I went back to Rocky Mountain and I bought everything you could possibly imagine to fill my basement with all I needed to train every single person. Then I proceeded to go door to door, coffee shop to coffee shop, handing out flyers, handing out numbers. And I just knew that if I was going to do this, I had to go all in. You can't go one step in, one step out. It's all in or nothing. And I knew this is what I wanted to do with my life. So after a couple months of this, clients started to come in. Everything started to go really, really well. And I could see there was a trend. It was trending up and I was loving it. But it still wasn't exactly what I wanted to be or what I wanted it to be. So there's this grocery store that I go to probably 4 or 5 times a week where I live. And I didn't realize there was a girl named, her name was Jasmine. She was there. And, the whole time I was losing weight, she was watching my progress. She worked behind the bakery. So one day, I'm back in there and she stops me and she's like, Alan, I just want to say I've been watching you for almost a year now. And it's so amazing how far you've come and what you've done. I said, thank you. And she herself was a bigger lady. I left that day and I just kept thinking to myself, how can I help her? How can I help her? And what I did is I went in the next day, I wrote out a gift certificate. I gave it to her and I said, it's a year of free training with me. You have to listen to everything I say. You have to follow everything I give you, and I will make you look like anything you've ever wanted before. She started to cry, and off to the races we were. In the course of a year, she lost, I think it was 120 or 130 pounds, and looked absolutely amazing. I had changed her life too. And I did that same thing with a gentleman. So I had them both going at the same time and basically told them they had to be my word of mouth. I would train them for free, and they would go ahead and talk to as many people as possible. And obviously, they were just walking billboards. The second that happened, business started to boom. And now, when I went all in, knowing that I didn't want to do anything else, I didn't want to be a server, even though I loved it. I didn't want to work on the oil rigs, even though you made good money. I knew my calling was exactly where I was and where I needed to be. And honestly, I don't work a single minute of the day. So I had been at my studio, which is the basement of our house, for about a decade. And I realized that I was outgrowing that space. And I knew that I wanted to expand and I wanted to go ahead and train more people and get online and try to help as many people as possible. So I went out and I searched for a space. I found a space, which I'm currently sitting in right now. And for 2.5 months, my buddy and I destroyed it and made it exactly what it is today. It is a place where it's only 3,000 square feet. But what I did is it's a personal training studio. It's not a regular walk-through gym. And the reason why I did that was right when you walk in the door, there is a pony wall set up that's about almost 5 feet. And the reason why I set that up, because the seating area is just in behind that, is when I was at my heaviest, I always assumed everybody was judging me after seeing me, and it bothered me to my core. I never wanted to make anybody else feel or go through that again. So I made sure I built that. So anybody that came in that was new to the gym, that was just walking through the doors was an accomplishment. They too could feel that safe feeling. And, to this day, I love coming to work. I've got 8 contractors that are here. Everybody's running their business. It's a great environment. People love to be here, and it allows me to do what I love. I get to yell at people. I get to listen to my own music. And it's kind of like 50 Shades of Grey, but like a positive version, because like you tell them what to do and yet they get results and keep coming back, even though you're yelling. Because I'm a very different individual. I'm not going to swear a lot on this, but I don't care if you're an 85-year-old grandma. I will say fuck. And it is what it is. And I just want to say that it's been 21 years now and I'm 42. I've got a 9 and 11-year-old. And, shit runs downhill. If daddy breaks down, the system breaks down, and they learn from the top down. And I know it sounds selfish. At no point in time do I want to go ahead and hinder my abilities. I want to make sure I eat right. My nutrition is insane. And you want to go ahead and allow yourself to feel as good as possible, because if you break down, everything else that you do breaks down below it. So I want to go ahead and talk to you guys a little bit about what I do and, what gets the results that I kind of implement. So when I go ahead and take on a client, I'll have them sit down here, or we'll have a call or a Zoom call, and I just listen. All I do is listen to exactly what they're looking for, what their lifestyle is like, what they do for work. Is it sedentary? Are they active? This and that. And I just let them talk. After they're done, I know exactly what to say, how to go about it, and where we need to start. I will say that every single one of my clients, I don't care who you are, how jacked you are, how heavy you are, how skinny you are, every single one of you will go on a 16-day cleanse. This one here is basically just a body reset for you to go ahead and adjust to the whole foods that I'm going to give you in the next nutrition plan. The 16-day cleanse, it's only 3 meals a day. It's not that hard. At any given time, I probably have 100 or 150 people doing it. It's such a positive thing because the average weight loss now is like 17, 18 pounds. I've had a guy just lose 32 pounds the other day, and it was just awesome. And it's in a short period of time. It's cleanse that goes ahead and draws more water out of your system. It takes care of any extra bloating, and anything that we're left over after, that's what we got to get rid of. So it's a huge motivational tool for anyone that's thinking about starting. They want to know where to go, how to get there. But I feel that if I can get somebody results that fast, they're hooked. And now they want to know what's the next stage, because now they're pumped. So that's number one. Number two is a workout. So I have a workout that is tailored to that cleanse because you don't have a ton of energy. So, whether you're beginner, intermediate, or an advanced trainer or advanced workout person, you want to make sure that it's conducive to your lifestyle. If you're a beginner, it's 3 to 4 days a week. If you're an intermediate, it's 4 to 5. And if you're advanced, you can hit 6 days a week. After the 16 days, I pride myself on nutrition and knowing what to eat, how to eat, why we're eating it, and everything in between. If you can't understand or recognize what's going in your body, don't put it in your body. I practice what I preach to the letter. So when I go ahead and start somebody on a nutrition plan, I find out what their blood type is. I base it on that. If they do, if they don't, it's not the end of the world. But I try to go ahead and tell every single person. Usually, I would say females have a harder time with this because most of them, they don't eat as much as they should. And regardless of what you've been taught or what you see, consuming the right amount of calories for the individual helps you move forward a lot faster. If you don't, you will stress the body out and your body just holds and it won't let go. So it's my job to go ahead and teach you the value of going ahead and consuming what your body needs to get rid of what it doesn't. And so it's very, very important, especially because I've had a lot of women basically tell me to F off when I give them their food plan because it's so much more food than they're used to. I say to them, I've said this spiel probably about 7,000 times now. For the first 2 or 3 days, you're going to feel full. After that, all of a sudden, you're going to get hungry, and then you're going to wonder why you're losing weight. And that's, I can say it until I'm blue in the face, but until somebody actually goes through it to realize it's going to work, that's what I usually need. After that happens, it's game over. I have a workout plan that is tailored to the individual, regardless of what you're looking for. If you want to be a bikini model, or if you want to go ahead and lose 50 pounds, or you want to look like a swimmer, I'll tailor the workout to exactly what you are looking for. In saying that, I have a couple non-negotiables. If I give somebody something and they do it and it doesn't work, that's on me. But if I give something to somebody and they alter it because they think they're going to lose more weight if they do more cardio, or if they eat less, they're going to lose more weight, and it doesn't work, that has to be on you. So right in my studio, right when you walk in, you turn, you look up, there's a thing that says trust the process. This is why the podcast is called Trust the Dyck. Okay. So you have to understand that if you're going to go all in like I did when I decided to make this my life's work, you have to trust who you're working with. If you give it 100% and it works, great. And if you don't, honestly, we can find other ways around that. But I will say after 21 years, I love what I do, and there's no cookie cutter plans out there. I do not agree with those. Every single individual is different. I have a huge intake form that's very in depth, but it doesn't matter what you're looking for. I can get you those results. So even though I'm here, like I usually start honestly at 4 o'clock in the morning. My alarm goes off at 3:15, and it only goes off at 3:15 because I love it. If I didn't like my job, it would be a job. But I get here at 4 o'clock. I train until probably 1:32, and then I myself go and work out at a different gym. When you're at the same place all day long, for me, it's hard to go ahead and get motivation to carry on. So I have to leave. So where I work out is a place called Global. And I'm just minding my own business, doing my thing. And one day some guy comes up to me and says, "Hey, can you make me look like you?" And I said, "Well, as long as you listen, I can try, but I'm pretty sure. Now I was kind of caught off because when you see this gentleman, in behind him, it looked like a little mini entourage. There's like a guy with a video camera, there's a guy with a piece of paper and a pen, and just this other guy. And, it was cool to see. But once again, I've never seen that before, especially in a gym. So he takes my number. He's like, "Okay, I'll get a hold of you." This was in December of last year. And so he contacts me and we meet in January. He brings me down to his studio. Turns out this guy's name is Dan Martell. And I had no idea who he was. I didn't look into it, nothing. So he says, "Okay, come on down to my studio and we'll talk." So I walk into his studio and within about 15 milliseconds, I've got a camera on me. He's like, "Oh yeah, by the way, everything is recorded in my entire life." I was like, great. Now I'm the kind of person that you can probably see my face is getting a little red because I've never done these kind of things before. So I was taken back, but I'm like, you know what? Let's just roll with it. So he brings me in. I meet his staff, all the guys that are working so hard and the girls that are working so hard for him. And we sit down in, it would look like a casting couch because there's a couch here, there's a couch here, there's a bunch of cameras. And so he sits down and we just start talking. He basically, talks to me about what's my process, how I go about this, where I see him going to be in X amount of months. And I just start talking. After about half an hour, it was kind of funny because now I've got like multiple guys taking their clothes off. They want to tell me, they want to see, okay, well, what should I do with my legs? They got their shirts off, asking about protein and carbs and this and that. And that is the environment I love. I thrive in that because you know what? I'd rather have somebody ask me a question and me give them an answer than not, and then leave being like, oh, I guess I can just kind of look it up. I love this shit to no end. So we sat down there for about 2.5 hours. I explained to him exactly what was going to happen and where we were going to go. So he says to me, "Is it okay if I go ahead and bring my camera guy in when we're doing this?" And I was like, "Not a problem." He's like, "I want to call it Project Abs." I was like, "All right, let's go." So after 2.5 months, he went from 220 pounds to 197 pounds shredded. Now I will say, this guy is obviously, I know him very well now, is very successful. He does very, very well. But I will say that, seeing the transition in from where he was to where he is now literally told me has 10x'd everything. The guy is just shot out of a cannon. Now he was before, but it's very different when you look the part. And I mean, this guy is ripped. And it's just so cool to see somebody that he was already successful. He was already in shape, but he just didn't realize the potential he had underneath. And that's what I like to go ahead and show a lot of people is I want to show you how hard you've worked. So I want to take off the weight so you can see it. So then we know exactly, or I know exactly how to go from there and build what we need to fix. So it was really, really cool to see him go from that whole transition. He ended up getting a photo shoot in Mexico and just look like a boss. I will say he's probably one of my favorite clients because I have a hard time taking on people that won't put in as much effort as I do. If you're going to go ahead and say, "I'm going to do this, this is where I'm going to go, I want to look like this," then put in the time to do it. No one says it's supposed to take hours and hours and hours. Dan and I work out 2-3 times a week for an hour. It can be done by any single person on the face of the planet. But once again, getting back to trust, you have to be able to trust the person that's giving you the advice and giving you your food, your workout, all that stuff. If you do and it works, it's game over. And I will say that, to this day, Dan has opened many, many doors because, I came from nothing. I didn't have anything. My parents and I, we lived in a motel for like 6 months, to a trailer, to this and that. So for me to go from where I was to a studio in Kelowna, I made it. Like, to me, I made it. I couldn't be happier. I was so excited because Kelowna is a hard place to make it in. And we don't have many of the amenities and stuff that are in other places. So, doctor, dentist, chiro, this and that. So when you make it, it's a big deal. And then I meet a gentleman like that basically tells me there's no ceiling. I don't have a cap, and I have to rewire my brain to think differently. It was a big deal for me because I was so stuck in my ways on how I did things, thinking that I had made it, that I never thought that there could be more. Him and I went ahead and started a fitness group online. And we started that in April, and it has exploded since. I'm running 6 other groups. Everybody is losing weight. There's thousands of people on this. And, to say where I came from with Michelle, with one mat, a set of dumbbells, and a set of bands, to helping thousands of people online feel better, look better, be able to pick up their kids, have no back problems, no knee problems, look at themselves in the mirror, feel comfortable naked, and just comfortable in their own skin. That is a big deal for me. obviously I wasn't comfortable where I started. And even to this day, like my kids have seen their daddy with his shirt off maybe 5 or 6 times in their entire life. And I compete bodybuilding, but for some reason, here is still 20 years ago. And, I'm trying really hard to get over it. And obviously I will. I want to be able to say that I can relate to so many other people that were in the same position. And I can tell you that you can feel a ton better. You just have to know the direction.